2 Corinthians chapter 10. Once again, we'll be starting there. Last week we started a mini-series ending today entitled Walls. And as we asked the question last week, I'll ask it again. As a Christian, we don't have any walls, do we? Yeah, we don't struggle with anything. The truth is, and you know this when you're honest with yourself, that many Christians have great walls in their souls. And this is part that's important. Some of these walls are not realized. They're not seen. I would call that a blind spot, if you want to call it a blind spot. You don't see them. They're there. You're not sure how they got there. And that's something that the Holy Spirit of God can reveal to you. I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. Some of these walls are ignored. Some aren't realized. And some are defended. In other words, they're ignored in the sense like, well, I know I have this wall in my heart, but I'm not doing anything about it. I like my wall. I'm used to my wall. I can live with my wall. I can function with my wall. My wall is my normal. So please don't introduce me to any sight of freedom or deliverance from my wall, because without my wall I'd be a little bit insecure. It's okay if I'm in my box. And some of them are defended. We still think we have justified for constructing the wall, putting the wall up in even the first place. Let me say this first. How do you understand or see when how do you realize there's even a wall in your soul? Well, that's a big question, and I'm not going to really attempt to answer that thoroughly right now, but let me tell you how I do it and what has worked for me as a Christian through the years. Is I simply, if I can use this term, I show up. In other words, I put myself in a place where the Spirit of God can speak to me and reveal things to me and teach me things about myself. If I want to learn arithmetic and I have a teacher at the school teaching me arithmetic, but I never go to school, am I going to learn arithmetic? No, you'll be somebody like me who never learned arithmetic. So I make a practice in my life, and I've been made this practice many years ago, is I try to meet God every morning. I try to get into a place where I have some quiet time with God, where I have my Bible open, and I'm in a prayerful mindset, and I pray for things. If I'm frustrated with somebody in my life, maybe my spouse, maybe a child, maybe somebody on the peripheral of my life, I pray for them. God, why am I frustrated? Ask Him, why am I frustrated? Why did what this person do to me hurt me so much? Why did that really eat at me, and why is it still eating at me? And I ask myself these questions. Or whatever those questions is, God, well, how come this happened this way? Or I read the Scriptures, and I ask God, how do these Scriptures apply to me? Is this something I really need to work on in my life that you want to show me about in my life? And without exception, I've said this many, many, many times. If I'm praying about an offense that has been afflicted upon me, and I pray about that person, how come this person did this, and why does this bother me this much? God has never told me one time, this bothers you, Tim, because that guy's a jerk. Never did that. I wish He would. That'd make me feel much better if God would just admit it, because I've called Him that. But that doesn't happen. God says, Tim, this bothers you because you have a wall. You have a wall of insecurity, of self-consciousness, a wound, a need, something that you really have not let me address in your life. And I've been trying to address this. I've been trying to bring you to freedom. I've been trying to bring you to healing here, but you resist me in this one small or large area. So this person in your life, he's my catalyst. He's what I'm using to get at your heart. Does that mean they were right? No, it doesn't mean that at all. We'll talk more about that in the last part of the message. But it just means that God is interested in my heart. What's going on in here more than what's going on out there. What's going on out there is just what peels away the layers to get on what's going on in here or not going on in there. So how do we get our walls broken down? First step, show up. Show up where God can get at you. Make time to talk to Him. Make time to speak to Him. Make time to deburden your soul. For those who have wounded you or whatever, pray for them. Not that they die. Or something bad happened. I don't want them to die. Just hit them with a piece of a space shuttle or something. I don't know. But no, don't do that. Just pray for them. God, I don't know why they did this, but show me what you want me to know what I'm going through here. Listen, it says in Hebrews 11, verse 6, without faith it is impossible to please Him, for he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and watch this, and He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. So He rewards us when we diligently seek Him. Not for the things of this world, but for insight into our own souls. Seek Him for those things. Ask Him. He is faithful and just. He'll show you, if you want Him to, what's going on inside of you. The Christian walk, you and me, those of us indwelt by the Holy Spirit of God, the bride of Christ, and our spiritual momentum, the momentum of our transformation can be either accelerated or slowed down, depending on how we address and deal with these spiritual walls that we have in our lives. Now, I define wall as this way. This was last week's definition. I'll keep it. A wall is a place of wound, weakness, or resistance that hinders and mutes our spiritual transformation. A wall is a place of wound, weakness, or resistance that hinders and mutes our spiritual transformation. We talked about a few of these last week. I'm going to talk about two more this week. And there are many, many of them, okay? And I'm not going to start defining each wall that could be, and there's variances of them and nuances to all of them. But the Holy Spirit will show you that if you let Him. Now, most walls were created by an event, trauma of some degree, potentially a living environment, where you grew up, how you grew up, the level or type of parental care, the potential lack of a man or woman in your lives. The word trauma is a word that means wound. It means that you were wounded. And trauma comes in many forms, many shapes, many sizes, and many, many, many degrees, depending on what it was. Sitting next to a dying parent, caring for them in hospice care for month in and month out can be traumatic. It changes your brain, just like any wound would change you. I shared this the first service, not to be melodramatic or any way, but just so you understand how a wall grows. A wall is protective. God gave us the ability to have walls to protect us when we're deeply wounded. In less than a month from now, it will be a year anniversary where we lost my daughter. And in our old church where that accident happened, and we're in that room when the gun went off, and being there, and since then I've talked to people in this room today and in the first service, and I asked this question, where were you when it happened? And they looked at me and they said, right next to you. I have no recollection of even seeing them. That happened on about 3 occasions. Great events of that day are blocked out of my memory. Those are walls I'm not open to bring down right now. You don't need to know those things. But see how God made our brains? A wall went up to protect us. Pastor Goworthy was sharing me. He was in that room. He shared with me, I saw a look on your face. I saw it go up. I saw a glaze come over your eyes, and I realized you were just disconnected from everything that was happening around you, even though I was functioning and moving. You put a small child in a violent home. That child copes by building a wall. You put a young man in a neglected, with a neglectful, abusive father, maybe verbally or some other way, not necessarily physically, and he'll construct a wall just to cope. You'll put a kid in the foster care system where they have no consistent parental love or parental care, and they'll build walls all around them just so they can find some sort of self-worth and survive and go through another day. So walls were given to us in a sense. We build these things so we survive, so we can make it, so we can still function in life. But then we become a Christian. The walls were never supposed to be there. They were a product of an old nature, a product of sin in the human race. Then we become a Christian, and God says, okay, I gave you the ability to have these walls that is written right into your human mechanism to protect you from this level of pain and trauma so you can make it. But now I want to help you bring those same walls down. Because now I've promised you a better life than that, a life of freedom, liberty, joy, and peace. So now, even though those walls were there for a point, they were points of survival and points of coping, but now let's bring those walls down. Because I'll give you a healing. You don't have to protect yourself and cushion yourself against these things. I will heal that wound. A boy looking for his dad's approval at some point has to go beyond trying to get another person's approval for his identity. At some point they say, no, God, I'm not looking for this person to validate me. I'm going to understand my validation by you because of that, the cross. That's where I'm going to find healing. Not from some person finally realizing me or giving me my due. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3, for we are human, but we don't wage war as humans. We use godly weapons, not worldly weapons, to knock down the strongholds of human reasoning and to destroy these false arguments. We destroy every proud obstacle that keeps people from knowing God, and we capture their rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey God. Did I ever give you the definition for wall? Did I ever put that screen up? I don't remember. Let me put that screen up again, the first screen. The definition of a wall. I want to, there you go. He goes, a wall is a place, a wound, weakness, or resistance that hinders or mutes our spiritual transformation. Sometimes I got lost in my side tracks here. And that's what we're launching from. So in those verses, that one of those words there is the word hupsoma, and talks about high thing, every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Verse 4, that was in a King James. I read that in a different translation for you. And it's interesting because that high thing really relates to, in Ephesians 2:2, Satan is the prince and the power of the air. We live in this world system. And in America, we have a world system of prosperity, first world. The illustration I use many times, the world system in America is different than the world system in Ethiopia. In America, I'm concerned with my retirement. I'm concerned that this government's going to spend all the money before I retire and I'll have no Social Security. They will, don't worry. In Ethiopia, they don't worry about that. In Ethiopia, they're wondering, I hope I don't get killed by extremists today, and I hope I can feed my family today. My retirement is not even on my map. I've never thought about a retirement. I'm thinking about surviving. Totally different approaches to their particular world system. Now, the world system is different, but there's one thing that it has in common. Again, Ephesians 2:2. Satan is the prince and the power of the air. 2 Corinthians 4:4. The God of this world is obviously the devil. So his world system, an evil age in Galatians 1:4 says the whole world lies in wickedness. In 1 John 5:19 says the whole world lies in wickedness. And the word wickedness there is a Greek word that means an evil that wants to infect other people. So this is the world system which we are born into and we live, and this world system will program us if we let it. So what are some of these walls? Two I want to get at today. And the first is absolutely a product of the world system in the United States of America. The first wall is the you owe me wall. Steve Audubon in his good book calls this arrogant entitlement. This is a civilized wall. Somehow we arrogantly think we're entitled to whatever it is we think that we are owed. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's prestige. Sometimes it's honor. This you owe me wall is a disease that can creep into a ministry. How many people in ministry do ministry because they like the honor they think it brings them? Wow. Did you really say that? I did. I really meant it too. If I'm doing ministry because of what it brings me, I'm doing ministry for the wrong reason. I related in the first service, I had a pastor friend of mine years and years ago. Some of you might know what I'm talking about. But this was we had a church of about 20 people, and he got very angry. He talked to another pastor friend of his that the church bought him a new car, and he was very excited about that. And by the way, feel free to do that every time you want. And he gets up in front of his church and goes, "This church needs to buy me a new car." Slams the pulpit. He didn't have a church the next week. 20 people. See, he had a spirit of entitlement. He had a you owe me wall that put up. This you owe me wall will bind up a local church. If I'm serving God for what I get from serving God, if I'm serving God because I like the affirmation it buys me, maybe from people, the notice of people when they come up to me and say, "You're so amazing." If I do these things so I can get the pat on the back and the hug, I'm doing them for the wrong reasons. You probably have an I owe you, you owe me wall. I will serve this local church if they affirm me, if they thank me, if they don't take me for granted. Listen, don't ever serve a local church. Serve God through a local church. In other words, you serve Jesus Christ, not Tim Kelley, not Grace Connection, not Calvary Chapel. You fill in the name of the church. You serve Jesus Christ. If you serve Jesus Christ and do all your service through Him, you'll never be offended on a local level. If you're serving, you have an you owe me wall, you look around and think, how come I'm the only one doing everything around here? Or, how come I'm the only one doing things around here? Sometimes you won't be frustrated. You'll just be happy about it because it'll bring more attention on yourself. So we serve God because of God. We serve Him because it's Him. My life is unto Him. It's not unto a church, unto a person. We try very hard to appreciate people, but we're not perfect at it. We say very hard to say thank you, but we're not perfect at it. I try to respond to all the people that mailed me letters and notes and emails in the last year, and I had about 2,000, maybe 3,000. I lost count. I got hundreds of them out, but there's many people that gave wonderful notes and donations to my family I was never able to thank. Please know how grateful we were. I'm getting at, my friends, sometimes you're going to get notice, sometimes you'll get a thank you, sometimes you'll get a pat on the back, and sometimes you won't. But don't make that why you do it. If you do that, if you make that why you do it, my friends, you won't make it. You won't make it. If you're waiting for men to notice you or appreciate you, you won't make it. You do it unto God. And then it's easy because you do it unto God. And He is a rewarder of those that diligently seek Him. Sometimes the you owe me walls are bridges to immorality. Happens in marriage. We feel as though our spouse has incurred a debt. Heck, I treat that person well. Here's a common scenario. I come home. I'm a lady, and there's a guy, And then they come home, they're married, they both work on full-time jobs. She comes home from work and she picks the kids up from daycare on the way home. She gets home and she cooks dinner, and then she throws a load of laundry in, and then she feeds the kids, then she bathes the kids, and then she throws the kids. Then she not throw them in bed because that'd be abuse, but she makes the kids go to bed, and now it's 10:30 at night, and she says, oh, and the husband all of a sudden gets off the couch and says, hey baby. How about me and you, hey. And she looks at him like, I'm going to kill you. Now, if this goes on for a decade or two, and this goes on for a decade, all of a sudden there comes a place where she's like, this guy owes me, or this girl owes me, and then Prince Charming comes into the scene. You're amazing. They don't appreciate you. I can't believe you do what you do. Your wife or your husband is so lucky to have you. No, you're handsome today. Or you're attractive today. You're thinking, this person makes me feel good. I feel good. I'm feeling good. And then before you know it, there's adultery. This person does not satisfy my needs. They don't appreciate what I do for them. You owe me. You owe me. Maybe it's an area of financial wealth. I work hard on that person. They should share the success with me. I agree with that principle, don't you? I think we just share all. No, I don't want to do that. I feel somewhat like I'm entitled. I work hard on that person. That person had everything handed to them on a silver platter. And sometimes we pass this level of entitlement on to our kids, and our kids grow up like that. It was said that this "you owe me" wall has an adolescent spirit to it. I thought that was a good statement. I think it was Artaban that said it. It's like a young person, like young teenagers, or not so young. They don't really think. They think they have earned everything. You do everything for them. You owe me. I can't believe you want me to do this. I have to clean my room? That's not fair. That's not fair. I got to do that. You want me to do what? Mow the yard? That's not fair. I was going to go to the mall with my friends. You guys are so mean. You're mean. You're bad parents. And because that's not fair. You owe me. That's an adolescent spirit, because that's how they think. It should just be given to me, right? Right? And that lasts sometimes right up till they have their own children. Then we can get even. Then we can look at them and say, aha, got ya. Something like that. It's this spirit of entitlement. Very unobjective wall. All they see is self. Know where it started? This is how it all started. Many thousands of years ago, there was a garden. And God owned the whole garden. And he looked at these two people. One was named Adam and one was named Eve. And they said, Adam and Eve, the whole garden is yours. Except there's one tree over there. That's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Just eat anything you want. Name all the animals. The whole thing is yours. Just don't have any fruit from that tree. That's what we asked. And then the God of this world shows up in the form of a serpent and says, God's not being very fair. He has all this, and he doesn't want you to have that one tree. He owes you that. After all, you're taking care of this garden for him. I mean, you're taking care of his creation. You're naming all his animals. If you stopped creating animals, you wouldn't have to do all his work. And he's like, yeah, that's right. He owes me. That's right. I'll show him. Give me that apple. Adam, take a bite. Well, Eve, take a bite. Okay. And that's where it all started. It started in that garden. Think with me. I can be humbled. I can be humble, or God can humble me. It's just easy to start off that way than being humble. Jesus, the night before he died, he was the only one who knew he was going to die the next day. He's at the Last Supper, and he sees Judas off to go betray him. He gets a basin of water, girds himself up with a cloth, and starts washing his disciples' feet. Knowing that 24 hours now he'd be hanging on a cross, knowing that those people in that room would all run for the hills as soon as the authorities came and drug him away. If anyone had a right to say, "You owe me," it was him at that moment. He knew what was coming. He goes, "You should be washing my feet. I'm going to die for you tomorrow. You owe me." But as soon as you put "you owe me" in the equation of life, grace stops. It's no longer grace. It's something far less inexpensive, far more inexpensive. The entire New Testament message, my friend, is not one of "you owe me." It's one of others. You put others first. You serve, and you serve, and you serve. Next wall, the wall of victimhood. Last wall we'll cover today. Last wall we'll cover in the series. Audubon calls this the wall of justifiable resentment. I'm calling it the wall of victimhood. Now, if you had a choice to die today, let's just say you're going to die. A man just recently chose to die. I think it was Virginia. He went to death on the electric chair, I believe that it was. He chose his way of death. Now, if you say you have to die tomorrow, I'm going to give you a couple ways. This way is really quick, a little painless. I'm going to give you an ice cream sundae before. And, or you can die this slow, torturous, painful, awful death. Which death would you choose? Well, we know. You would choose the first death. Just get me out of here. Quick. Make it quick. I don't want to see it coming. Just don't even surprise me. But I don't want to feel pain if I don't have to feel pain. This is what resentment is. Resentment or bitterness is a slow death that you never quite wrap your arms around until it's resolved. It ebbs away at your heart, takes chunks out of your joy, robs you of peace. It's like a cancer cell in your body. Then unless you resolve it, it's going to have a work in you. Let me read you this comment by Audubon, and he talks about resentment. Audubon, that's right. Resentment is toxic. It can eat out your soul like an acid. Resentment also gives control of your life to the person you resent. We don't realize that when we resent a person for what he has done to us, we do the very opposite of what we want. We allow that person to control us. He becomes a wall that stops us cold, casting a dark shadow on the present and blocking off the future. Wow. Let me ask you something here, and I know the answer. Has anyone ever hurt you? And we know the answer to that. Has anyone ever taken advantage of you? Well, maybe I can flip this a little bit. Have you ever hurt anybody? Have you ever taken advantage of anybody? Has anyone inflicted pain on you that was not warranted? Have you been truly victimized? I'm not talking about somebody who stole your baseball cards when you were 7, even though that would be hard. I'm talking about things that were life-changing. A relationship that broke up devastatingly. Somebody who ruined reputation, ruined your relationship with others. Someone who maybe cast a shadow into your life. However it lines up. Somebody who took advantage of you potentially economically and won't fix it. And it consumes you. You're angry. You don't understand why God seems to be okay with this, why God isn't intervening. You don't understand their mentality. How can they pretend like that never happened? Wow. How about this one? I thought that person was a Christian. No, it never happened. Christian business deals go awry. And can I be honest with you? Sometimes Christians just do some real unscrupulous things. Sometimes Christians just take from other Christians. Sometimes Christians will lie to other Christians, especially sometimes, unfortunately, yes, it happens in the business world. I hate to say it, but Christians oftentimes do the very same thing non-Christians do. Regrettably so. So this victimization causes a root of resentment in your soul. We can learn to live with it, but it's sort of like learning to live with cancer. The disease never goes away. It keeps eating away and capturing more territory and sucking life out of me. That's what bitterness will do, and that's what resentment will do. It'll just keep eating away, and bitterness will eat away, and you'll find out that your thoughts are consumed, and you're just waiting for the other person to crash and burn. You're praying that they crash and burn, but you're spiritual, so you never really say it. And you wonder why isn't God fixing this? Why is God blessing or seemingly blessing that person? And why did I do everything right, but I'm on the short end of the stick? I did everything right. They didn't. They lied. They cheated. They stole. Whatever it was. You know the answer to that? I don't. God does, though. Why he does it. There's a story Audubon tells of a lady that she was abandoned as a young child by her father. That was a good illustration, and it was a long story. I'm just condensing it down. And so she had these abandonment issues that you'd hear about in a counseling class, where she felt like men couldn't be trusted, and that all men were liars and stuff. Like we tell our daughters that all the time anyway. And so there was, and then she remarried a man, and she told this man right off the bat, this is my baggage. This is my stuff. This is how I think. I'm always concerned someone's going to run out on me. They're going to cheat on me. They're going to do this. So know this getting into this relationship. This is my stuff. I don't have any intention of dealing with it. She didn't say that, but really she did. And so they get into this marriage, and things go on for a decade or so, and he has an affair on her. And he ends up divorcing her and marrying the woman that he had the affair with. She is drawn in an amazing bitterness and resentment. She swore by the fact that, well, that marriage with that other woman, that's going to crash and burn. That's not going to last. I know this guy. That's not going to last. 10 years passed. 10 years. She's still waiting for his new relationship to crash and burn. Never crashed, never burned. Well, I'll get over this when he apologizes for what he's done to me. 10 more years pass. He never apologizes. Finally, she sees a counselor. Her question was this: how can I make a man apologize to me? Because I will not be a whole person until they do. You see, this woman, my friends, was she a victim? Yeah, she was. She lost 20 years of her life. 20 years because of bitterness and because of resentment were gone. That's what bitterness and resentment will do to you. They'll put its hook in you. until you resolve it through spiritual surgery, it will never go away. It may lessen a little bit, but it'll always be there. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 31 says this. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. The word bitterness there is pikria. It means a bitter root left unattended that will poison the entire body. When I plant, anyone knows where I live and you see my front lawn, you realize it's really the best lawn in Florida, in St. Pete anyway, and it's just a really gorgeous lawn. Because practice makes perfect. I planted 3 lawns in 5 years, and this one actually has worked. But one of the things I did for this lawn, I killed the old lawn, I got rid of the old sod, and I raked it all out, getting ready for the new sod. But I was invaded by Bermuda grass. Some of you all know that. Bermuda grass is all over the place here. Bermuda grass is very pernicious. It's very, very hard to get out of your lawn once it gets in your lawn. In fact, don't even try. And so once I did this, I looked at all around. I had all these little Bermuda roots everywhere, little white roots. And I already killed it, but they never quite always die, like a vampire. And I pulling these roots out. I get this root, I pull this root out, this long and that long. And I went on for a week. I walked through my front yard. Every spare moment I had just pulling roots. After dinner, I had 15 minutes, pull roots. Just go out there, pull roots. I could go out with a date with my wife. No, honey, I'd rather pull roots. And I would just go pull roots. And by the end of the week, I had wheelbarrows loaded of these Bermuda roots. That's what it took for me to get rid of that. You had to pull it up by the roots. That's what bitterness is. It's a root. And you have to resolve it. You need to yank it out. You need to pull it out. You need to address it directly. It doesn't say get rid of all bitterness when somebody finally apologizes. Because they won't. Or rarely do they. Or get rid of all bitterness unless what they did to you was really, really bad. Then you can hold that bitterness. No, it just says get rid of all bitterness. This resentment, my friends, this bitterness is a huge wall that will suck the life out of you. And sometimes even cause you to compromise your values and what you stand for. Job, the 5th chapter, 2nd verse says, surely resentment destroys the fool, and jealousy kills the simple. I'm going to tell you a wonderful secret. This is how you get even. This is why you came today. I'm going to tell you how to get even with the people that hurt you. Get over them. Forgive them. And move on. Resolve the issues in your heart and move on. Because what you have done, you have given them authority in your life. You have said to them, even though you've hurt me, I'm going to let you continually hurt me and hurt me again and hurt me again and hurt me again and hurt me again. In fact, I'm never going to disconnect my emotions from you. I'm not going to disconnect my thoughts from you. So every time I see you, it's just going to be more pain and more hurt. I'm going to live this pain, and I'm going to live this pain and live this pain. So that person's just going through their life, not even probably realize it's going on, doing their thing, and they have no idea that you're connected to them to a wavelength that everything they're doing, you're waiting for them to fail, you're waiting for them to fall, you want their demise, but you're too spiritual to admit it. Because of bitterness. You know what God does with these people? He uses these people to get to your inner man. God has a plan for them too, don't get me wrong. I don't know what that plan is. But when he takes those people, he takes that offense, says, now I can open up Tim Kelley's heart and address issues that needed to be addressed for a long time. If that person didn't afflict me, probably never would have opened up that door. Jesus doesn't only want to be Lord of my wallet He doesn't always just want to be Lord of my schedule. He just doesn't want to be Lord of my time. He just doesn't want to be Lord of my marriage. He wants to be Lord of my inner man. He wants to take lordship of what goes on in here. So he can what? Conform us into the image of Christ. Listen, I'll start winding down here. Forgiveness is a decision, my friends. We make the decision, I'm going to forgive, and it kicks off a process. There's a process attached. Some will be long, some won't be. But I make the decision first, and I get on with the process. I say, God, I'm going to forgive. Then tomorrow, when I want to revenge again, no, God, I'm forgiving. I get on with the process. The sooner the better. The sooner I start the process, the sooner I start living again. Really living. Understanding forgiveness is essential. Let me tell you a few things what forgiveness is not. This may help you. Forgiveness is not approving what the other person did. Not that. Forgiveness is not excusing what the other person did. Oh, well, that's okay. No, one okay. It was wrong. Forgiveness is not justifying what the person did. Forgiveness is not pardoning what the person did. Well, I forgave. Let's say it's an issue of money. And you go, they took this money from me, and now the forgiveness doesn't mean they don't pay it back. They owe you. Forgiveness simply means I'm not going to let them consume me. I'm not going to be a prison to their affliction, the offense on me. Forgiveness may or may not require reconciliation. You may end up reconciling with the one you're forgiven, but oftentimes you won't reconcile with the one you're forgiven. Forgiveness is not about reconciliation, it's about what happens inside of me. You can forgive them and not have them over for the holidays. In fact, I would suggest you probably don't. It is not denying what that person did. It's not like pretending like it didn't happen. It did happen. It's not pretending like you weren't hurt. You were hurt, and your wound was legitimate. It's just simply saying it's not going to own me. It's not going to control me. I am moving on, and I'm letting God do what God wants to do. We got to get people out of our craw. You know what a craw is? That's an Irish word for gut, or a New England word. I don't know where it came from, but it just means I made it up. But it's a craw. I get out of my craw. If you're, some of you know what I'm talking about. I'm not a crow, a craw, and I want to get this out of my craw. If you're waiting for justice, stop waiting. You'll be waiting a long time, maybe. Let God deal with it. So that's what forgiveness is not. What is forgiveness? First of all, it's being a legitimate victim and forgiving anyway. Yeah, you were victimized, but I forgive anyway. Number two is having no record of the offense. In other words, when I'm saying that, okay, I'm going to forgive you. This happens in marriages a lot. I forgive you, but I'm going to hold this little nuclear card in my wallet or my purse just in case you recross the line again somewhere down the road. We get into a big, heavy argument. I'm going to pull this thing out that I forgave you of. Remember I forgave you of that? I'm going to use this thing, but now I become a rubber mallet. I'm just going to whack. Well, remember that? You did blank, clank, and start whacking them with it. My friends, if you're a victim of adultery, please, and we're talking years later, at some point you forgive. You have to move on. And you have to stop bringing up the past and using the past as the frame of reference. It's an unhealthy relationship. Now, I understand the process. Remember, I started this as a process. I'm not talking about, just forget it and move on. It's not that easy. I'm talking 10 years later, 5 years later, 15 years later, the offense is still front and center in that relationship. We stop waiting for these people to be punished. We don't tell other peoples about the infraction. Or a biblical word for that is called gossip. In other words, I don't say, I've forgiven them, but Diane, you know what Mona said about me? I've forgiven her. Don't get me wrong. I've forgiven her. But no, she's forgiven. I'm forgiven because I'm that type of a guy. But can I tell you what she did to me? And don't tell anyone, but. You ever hear those words? Run. Don't tell anyone, but. You're about to be puked on. And don't tell anyone, but. Someone's about to tell you something you don't really need to know. That's not forgiveness. That's not forgiveness. We shut up about it. We stop bringing it up. We start talking about anyone that will have my ear, anyone who will be sympathetic to me concerning it. We give grace and we give mercy. Which again, doesn't mean restitution isn't paid or apologies don't need to be made. But we give grace and we give mercy because we're the ones forgiving. Then there must be a relinquishing of all bitterness and resentment. We give it to Christ. And here's the biggie. Then we'll close in a few moments. We forgive God. We forgive God himself for letting this happen in the first place. Say, God, I don't know your will. I don't know why you let this happen, but I know you control the things of heaven and earth. And my life, and it's in your hands. Yet this has happened to me. Whatever this is, this divorce, this rape, this loss, this whatever. I don't want any aught between me and you, Father. I trust you, your love for me, your care for me, your plan for me. Sometimes, my friends, we just will point our unforgiveness at a person, but it's really much higher than that. It's me resolving the issues of my life with God himself, with the Lord himself. This is where true forgiveness and healing and restoration and joy and peace and power and victory, it all starts here. God, I'm a mere person. Do not understand these things. Certainly would not bring these things into my own life. Certainly has not been the script that I have written for me in my life. But it's the script that you have written. So I resolve it with you. My friends, you do those. This is a great wall, the wall of resentment. I'd put the wall of blame. We want to blame. We want to blame. We want to know why we have this pain. We want to know why this thing happened. Whatever this thing is, and it's just thousands of different things. We look at the person who is responsible for my pain. And this thing inside of me, unless I bring it to God and I leave it there, it'll start eating me out from the inside out. Don't give people that hurt you authority over your life. Because of the grace of God, because of the cross of Christ, take that authority back. Say, they're not having authority over me. They're not getting my thought life. They're not getting my will. They're not getting my emotions. They're not getting my vocal cords. They're not getting those things. I'm not giving those things to them. I'm giving them to you, God. I'm keeping those things. Those are part of my life. They're not controlling them by what they have done to me or have not done for me. That, my friends, is freedom. Dear Jesus.